and welcome to this special Women's Day episode. Today we have an incredible, inspiring guest with us, a woman whose journey is a true testament to leadership, resilience, and breaking barriers. I'm honored to introduce Lieutenant Commander Sadhana Giri Ma'am, an Indian Navy veteran, leadership coach, corporate trainer, and learning and development consultant, certified psychometric professional, an author of Emotions Decoded, a Fit India ambassador under the Government of India's mission. Sadhana Ma'am has made a lasting impact in the world of development and well-being. But today, she is here with us on a mission that is very close to her heart, to encourage and inspire women to consider a career in Indian Navy. As a mother, wife to a soldier, and an ex-Mrs. India Worldwide Pride of the Nation, Sadhana Ma'am's journey proves that women can thrive in any role, whether on land or in sea. Her dedication and leadership have made her a true advocate for women's empowerment, and she is committed to showing women that the Indian Navy offers not just a career, but an opportunity to serve the nation and grow as strong and capable leaders. Join us as Lieutenant Commander Sadhana Ma'am shares her story, her passion for empowering women to take on roles in the Indian Navy, and how every woman can break boundaries and fulfilling their potential. Please welcome Lieutenant Commander Sadhana Ma'am.
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for such a wonderful introduction. I'm all excited to start this beautiful conversation with you.
So, what motivated you to join Indian Navy, and how did you decide to pursue this career?
When I was a little kid, we were four sisters. I was the eldest of all four. And society bothered my parents about how and questioned as to how they will take care of four daughters. How will my parents marry them off with good dowry and into good families? That was the only botheration my relatives and the society we were surrounded with had, which to me I found it very disgusting since the beginning. And I realized that is that the only worth that a female child has? Why can't she do something significant and be standing on her own 2 feet and have her own identity? And therefore, when that was happening, and there were so many other small considerations, small things which was happening, which opened my eyes to it. For example, Family Feud, saying that my parents have all girls, and why would they need property? Whatever ancestral property we had. And so he was not being given his due part.
Property share.
Yeah, share. And that is why, seeing all this, I realized that education is very important. My father was a teacher, and we were living in urban areas, and every summers we used to come back home to our village. And I realized that if I don't make use of the education that I'm being provided with, this opportunity, I think I will end up being in the village, end up living a life of a nobody, where I would be married to a man, will have a few kids, and that's it, my life will end. Which I never wanted in my life, because that's all we could hope for, girl child in my village. That's what was there to look for. And so I made use of all the opportunities that existed, that was provided to me through my parents, whether it is education or it was in terms of my enrollment in NCC, anything and everything. I made my best efforts possible to stand out, okay, to push my boundaries so that I can shape myself as a leader. And then NCC happened. In fact, I was part of NCC wing as a junior wing cadet. And then also when I was in college, again I joined NCC Army Wing.
So it started from schooling onwards?
Yes, it started when I was 12-13 years old. The entire realization that I have to work hard and I have to have my own standing in this society. So when I was doing graduation there, I was again part of NCC, Senior Wing Army Corps, and I worked really hard. I became under officer cadet. I was C certificate holder. I was best cadet, and then I was pursuing BSc physics with specialization in electronics, and I realized that I have to score also. So I was really working hard on all the aspects that I was part of, and I scored distinction.
Wow.
And was also elected as student council president. So all of these things I was putting my best efforts so that whatever it is that I will do, and especially I was attracted to army uniform to begin with, and I wanted to be an army officer. And I thought there is no one in my family who's an armed forces officer, and one very easy line for my profession was into teaching. And I got into PG. I was doing electronics from Mumbai University, and an easy path was very familiar was to become a teacher or professor. And yes, I did during my post graduation. I was teaching in coaching classes, and then joined a school in Gujarat where I was teaching physics to a higher secondary school. And then Navy happened after one failed thing in the army. Like I was recommended, and I didn't get a call letter, so I was shattered. And I was already making plans while I was appearing for this SSB in the Indian Navy. I was making plans that if not this time in the Indian Navy, then I will prepare for civil services. And as luck would have it, I made through. I got a call letter, and yeah, there I was. So I had a background as to why I wanted to join, and it was pretty much what I just narrated you.
Can you share your journey in the Navy and some defining moments that shaped your career?
All right, so let me begin with my training. So training happened in Indian Naval Academy, which is in Edimala, Kannur district of Kerala. And it was both male and female candidates. And it was a rigorous training. And it was 5 months of rigorous training. And after that, we joined our specialization courses. So I was chosen as an air traffic control officer, and for that I had to move to Air Force Academy, which is where we get trained for our professional roles in the Indian Navy. And thereafter I joined one base in Tamil Nadu. After that, Visakhapatnam, which was also air base. So all these were air bases. Navy has very professional air arm, very full-fledged and self-sufficient in that way. And so after my first appointment in Tamil Nadu, which was close to Chennai, and then Visakhapatnam, and then I had a brief tenure in close to Rameshwaram, and then Mumbai. And I will say that being a part of professional arm, which aviation is, it really shaped me into a person who could take split-second decisions. Like, and you were in charge of men and material worth crores of rupees. And therefore, you had that responsibility on your shoulders, that whatever it is that you have learned, you apply to the T, so that there is no mishap, so that there is no collision, event or incident which could actually harm because of someone's carelessness. And so that responsibility was always there, that attitude, that agility, mental and physical, was always there, because you have to take that quick decision, and that can determine life and death of lots of people around that you're handling. And that is why I think today I'm a person who can multitask, okay, who can do a lot of things together.
Like looking in your earlier career, you have done student council president, you have also done NCC, and you also got merit things and that. So in that way, you were always a multitasker, not when you joined the Navy.
Very true. One has to be a multitasker. One has to learn to focus on one aspect as well as, when you are not there, when you finish that, there is another aspect of life that you have to now give your 100%. So all this, it got refined when I was an ATC officer. Okay, and you're always on alert. Even now, it has become part of my personality. I always think in terms of contingency, what can go wrong and how can I prepare myself in advance. So that is as part of my personality, and that really helps me a lot. So sometimes, in fact, my daughter who's young, who's a teenager in fact, asked me as to why you thinking like this, why are you thinking negative? I'm like, no, this is not thinking negative. It is thinking in terms of contingencies. What can happen also, that you
Worst
can
case
prepare.
scenarios.
Worst case scenario that you can prepare so that your life is smoother. You are well prepared. And they say also, when you sweat in peace, you bleed less in war. So that's what I do as well. I work hard. I prepare for the future. In fact, I'm a very active person when it comes to my physical fitness, and the same has been imbibed in my children also, and especially my younger one. So the defining moments were so many, small moments. But once my daughter was born, I realized that it was really a great tightrope walk, I will say, where I have to actually balance my professional part, switch off myself, and then come back home and look after my daughter, who doesn't know that I have just come back home after a night shift. Okay, and she wanted all my attention. So that kind of balancing act, again, I learned that in service. There were times when it was really difficult. My husband was not around. He was posted elsewhere, and now I'm a mother. I had no family support. So somehow we managed, because of the infrastructure that existed, because I had some domestic help back home. So I managed. So I think this kind of training I got in the armed forces, that I know how to where to draw the line and how to balance your life well, how to focus on all aspects of life, and wherever you are, give your 100%. So this is what I have learned, and that's how it has shaped my personality.
Many women hesitate to join the defense forces, like they have so many societal norms and stereotypes. What would you say to challenge these perceptions?
Definitely, there are so many perceptions that are existing in the society. First of all, whether it is armed forces or any career whatsoever, it is extension of our society. And so we can see that perception like it is men's world, and it is very difficult. You cannot take care of your family when you are in the armed forces, so on and so forth, right? And it is like very hierarchical and things like that. And you only know many more that exist. And it is across India, whether it is north of India or south of India, it's the same. The stereotypical perceptions are the same, right? That you can't conceive is also a perception, because you have to undergo tough and strenuous physical training and all that, and it is very demanding physically. All of these perceptions just prevent women from joining armed forces. So I want to break all these ideas that exist in the society, and I want to tell you that none of these are true. That it is physically demanding, yes it is, but then as a woman, everything is physically demanding. When you become a mother, it becomes physically demanding when you take care of your children as well as your household. So woman who works in the construction field is carrying that load on her head, and then also has a family to take care, go back and cook for the family. So the kind of physical stress that women are always carrying, my mother has carried, I can carry that as well. So nothing special about that you cannot. If you can, in fact, you are a creator as women. You can create a life, you can nurture a life, you can bring a life to existence in this planet. You can bear that pain of labor, which is world's number one painful experience. If you can go through that, then I'm sure you can go through the physical training that exists in the training establishments, and in fact later also when you join the regular forces. So
What
this-
about the emotional side? Like these days we see so many reels like women are like emotional about everything. So in that kind of situations, if they get emotions and all, men think that they will think through emotions, not logic. So what do you say about that?
Absolutely. So emotion is one layer of our personality. We have 5 layers, okay, and it is called as Annamaya Kosh, which is the physical dimension of our body. Then is Manomaya Kosh, which is emotional layer of our body. Then is Vijnanamaya Kosh, which is intellectual layer of our body. And then Pranamaya is your energy centers and your breath and everything. And then there is Anandamaya Kosh, which is blissful state. Okay, so all these layers of human body is really crucial, and the very fact that you have these layers, it makes you a human being. It makes you a live human being, and it is a blessing. So we have been conditioned to believe that men don't have emotions or men should not feel emotions. Okay, and because of that conditioning, actually men have not learned to process emotions. If they are sad, they get angry. If they are frustrated, they get angry. If there is any other emotion also, anxiety, they are angry. They're angry, they only know anger. I mean, they only are able to express their emotion through anger. Whereas if they learn how to process each of the emotions and express it the way it is supposed to, process it and express it the way it is supposed to be, or channelize it in a right way, then I think the problems that are existing in the society and in fact in the services will not happen. Women, they say, are emotional, is partially not right. Women understand emotions. Women feel emotions. The feminine side, the nurturing side, it is very crucial that you feel the emotion of love, of kindness, of compassion, and that's how the world goes around because of these emotions. And if you say that, okay, don't have these emotions, then I think we cannot survive. I think it is high time that we understand that, okay, women process emotions, men don't process emotions. It is very crucial that you pay attention to the emotions of the people, both men and women. So today it has just started. We are beginning to have women below officer ranks as well in the services. Okay, through Agniveers we have seen that we've already have from past 3 years, I believe, that we have Agniveer. We have women soldiers through Agniveer. We have sailors who are women. And so as the population will grow, when they come in the mainstream as well, then they will do longer service. Then we realize that it is very crucial that we learn how to process emotions. And that is why, in fact, I was so curious about this entire aspect and so many other things, the way I have experienced the armed forces, my interaction with my subordinates, men, women together. I realized that this is one topic that people are not paying attention, and that is why I started learning this particular part of human existence, and that is why I wrote this book called as Emotions Decoded. So women are not emotional, and it is not a weakness. Women process emotions. So if they're sad, the tears come, which does not mean that they are emotional or it is any weakness. It is just that they express it, they process it. And to the world, I want to say, just be fine with it, because that's what makes us individuals. That's what makes women women, men men. Okay? So let's accept these differences. Let's learn to process emotion, and let's take emotions into considerations. Why not? We are doing such tough jobs, and how can we ignore emotions for the long run? In the long run, Yes, when there is war, when there is contingencies, we can keep our emotions aside. But when it is peacetime, when it is normal scenario, we have to carry our emotions with us. We have to be human enough to understand what is going on with my men and my subordinates, my peers, what is happening back home with my wife, with my husband, with my children. So women are not emotional. So I want to just clarify that women are emotionally more intelligent, more intuitive. So this is an advantage. That's what I will say.
What unique strengths do women bring to Navy? And what are the different roles they are making a difference in?
So now coming to strengths of women are emotionally more mature, they are intuitive, they have this caring side to them, compassionate side to them, which really comes handy when they have to handle their men. Okay, and I'll tell you how it benefits. So that one time I had some issue in back when I was in the armed forces, when I was in the Navy, and I went to my boss and I was narrating my issues to him, and he screamed like hell. He screamed like I was nobody, like I was a puppet. He was not willing to listen. Okay, I understand that he had some task at hand, but maybe you could say that he's occupied and he could call me later. But then this was his approach. While I feel that if there was another woman there, a woman boss, maybe there is high chance, okay, that she would listen, understand the issue, and if not resolve my problem, at least give me that patient hearing. That's how women are different than men. So when there is a lot of personal issues that men come up with, there can be family issues, marital issues, okay, and we handle men, no, we have 50 to 100 or 300 men subordinates who we have to manage all the aspects, like their promotional aspects, their professional aspects, their what is happening in their family, counseling, and all of those things. We have to bring.
You have to psychologically analyze them, because even if they are
Yes.
not balanced,
Yes,
they-
just like you do to your children. Okay, so you do that in your when you are in the work front, when you are there. So they come up with whole lot of issues. Now, as women who have that caring and compassionate side, who are emotionally more mature, intuitive, who are better listeners, they will listen and try, if not resolve it instantly, at least they share perspectives, they give a way ahead, they counsel, they educate, and equip the individual to manage his or her situation. That's how women, that's what is her strength. And in every domain that she is now working, whether it is aviation branch, ATC, observer, pilot, or in the education branch, the logistics branch, in so many other branches that exist, okay, we see that they are not only competitive professionally, they take balanced decisions, they are more mature. And that is why I say that when the population of women will increase in the armed forces and across the world, the wars will reduce.
Ma'am, as we know, you are a veteran and you have served as a lieutenant commander. So what difference did you make as being a woman in that role?
Like I said, we don't have a male officer and a female officer. When you are in the uniform, you are an officer or you are a soldier. There is no differentiation there. Okay? There is no differentiation at all. I don't know why, even when we have physical standards, there are minor differences in the standards, which are minor and which is backed by science, backed by the biology of our individual bodies. Men have different body and women have different body. The oxygen carrying capacity of a man, their tissues is different than a woman. And so there is minor differences in the standards. But given, if you open the doors and you just say that, okay, these are the criterias, there I'm sure there would be women who can meet those criterias and be worthy of the particular position. For example, there are certain trainings that still don't exist for women. There are some branches. For example, submarines. My husband is a submariner, and I know some Western world have submariner women as submariners, and submarine life is not very easy. It's actually you have to be underwater for considerable period of time. You have to go through tough training.
Of course, being inside is like you don't have sun.
Yes.
So how much?
And it's so compact.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not an easy life there. Pilots, of course, it has started. Marine Commandos, which is also an elite branch, and it is, one of the toughest trainings, I would say, that armed forces can go through. Any soldier can go through. And even now, women are not there. People say that women are not meeting the criteria. But then I've never seen them inviting women for those roles. Why not open and see? When women in the Western countries can do, why not women in the Indian armed forces? We can do. We have such great history of women like Rani Lakshmibai.
Yeah.
And so many other people, so many other women. So we can definitely do. We just have to open our minds, okay, change the mindsets that exist, and definitely can do a great job. Women can do a great job. So that's what I was saying. You asked me as to how you as Lieutenant Commander contributed. So I was not different as a female. I was an officer, an ATC officer who did my role the way I was supposed to. I was an air traffic control officer, and I was supposed to ensure that all the air traffic is handled in a way that there is no mishap, there is no accident, incident or anything like that, whether in air or on ground. And I ensured, okay, for 12 years that I was an ATC officer, there was no accident or incident in my duty, okay. So that was it. So that's what I brought to the table. I was alert and I was agile, mentally and physically, both, despite whatever was happening back home. Maybe my daughter was sick with bronchitis, maybe my maid was not there home. Whatever it was, I was there in time. I performed my duty.
What are the available career options in the Indian Navy for women, and what are the qualifications that are required if you want to join the Navy or armed forces?
Fantastic questions, and I think very relevant to students out there who are wanting to join Indian Navy as a career option. So there are numerous branches that is open for women candidates. So to begin with, my branch, which is ATC, Air Traffic Control branch, the qualification is BE BTech with physics, chemistry, maths in 10+2, and there is minimum cutoff which is required. Also earlier they used to have Indian Navy entrance test for direct entries. I think for some time they have stopped it, and you just have to apply, and if you meet the criteria, percentage criteria, they will call you for SSB. And as an ATC officer, you have to manage air operations. Then there is pilot entry, which again you have BE or BTech degree primarily, and with maths and physics in 10+2, and that's a direct entry. So maybe there can be INET, which is Indian Navy entrance test, or it can be direct. You can be called for SSB. SSB is Service Selection Board, wherein once you meet the criteria of percentage, then they will call you for particular days of test, which is called as Service Selection Board. It's a board formed, board of officers who assess you at different levels, personality wise, psychological makeup, your intelligence, your physical agility, your leadership qualities, your power of expression, and so many other leadership qualities that are there. There are some 14 criteria that they want to check, and this Service Selection Board is for 5 days. And first stage is screening test. After that, if you qualify that, you get to stay for another 4 to 5 days, wherein you will have other test by psychologist, then detailed test by GTO, group testing officer, and then your interview by interviewing officer. So 3 officers are checking you carefully, like microscopic check on you, whether you are eligible or not. And if you make it, then you go to the next stage, which is medical. And that is the entire process. And then there is education branch, wherein you are either masters in physics or electronic or maths, and then or BE BTech. And after that, same, you have to provide education to the naval personnel. That is your role. Then there is observer entry. Like this entry is again for candidates who are science graduate, so BSc or BE BTech with maths and physics in 10+2, and they have to actually operate some sensors on board aircrafts during maritime reconnaissance operations. Then there is logistics. Again, it has as qualifications BSc or BCom or MBA, BBA, and in fact BE BTech as well. And then you actually manage procurement and other logistic requirements of the Indian Navy. And then there is Naval Armament Inspection Branch, which also exists. Again, you have to be BE BTech, mechanical, electronics, electrical, and these branches, and wherein you have to test the arms and ammunitions, that weapons that Navy has, their operations and servicing and other things. Then there is naval architecture. So therein you are, as a qualification, you can be BTech with civil this thing, or mechanical, or again any other branch, and wherein you are responsible for construction of ships and submarines. So these are all opportunities that exist for women candidates, and yes, so they can make the most of these opportunities that exist. And for details, you can visit Join Indian Navy. If you just Google Join Indian Navy, you get all the details, whether you qualify for this or you don't qualify for this, what branch to choose, you get all the details, the current openings, everything is there. So open Google and type Join Indian Navy, and that is your doorway. So do explore that.
So ma'am, there are few women, they are unsure whether they are fit for Indian Navy or not. What kind of advice would you give for them?
Like, if you have a desire, I always had this desire. So if you have a desire, you know the roadmap. At least you have some role models who you look up to, right? So that is one aspect, internally, that you are inspired and motivated to join. That apart, like I said, join Indian Navy. Open that website and look for the criteria as to what the criteria is. Qualification wise, you have to meet those criteria. But as far as physical, mental makeup is concerned, your strength is concerned as an individual, your character, all that is tested in SSB, Service Selection Board, which I told you, it happens in 3 stages or 4 stages, I can say. First is screening, then is 5 days test. After that, there is conference out. Those who are not selected go out. Those who are selected go for medical test. After medical test, then the merit list is prepared, and those who come in the, for example, there is 5 seats for the particular branch. So top 5 will get selected, will get call letter, and maybe other might not get. Maybe next time they have to do, again they have to go through that process. So they can go through this entire, research they can do. And so you have to be someone who wants an adventurous life, someone who is looking for great, work-life balance, a way of life, as they say. Then Indian Navy, Indian Armed Forces is the career for you. If you're looking for money, don't come here, because if you want to have money, go to corporate, but you won't have life there. You want good life, you also want good family life, good professionally satisfied and also family life, opportunities in sports, adventure, all of these, host of infrastructure that is there for your entertainment, for your well-being is present. If you want a holistic life, come to Armed Forces, come to Indian Navy. But if you want to have lots of money, but lots of stress, no family life, please remain outside and go to corporates. All right.
So, what are some common issues faced by women in Indian Navy, and how can they overcome it?
All right. So, let me start with my experience. I was an air traffic control officer, and as an air traffic control officer, you have to have erratic routine. Like, you have to go through that erratic routine where you have to work in shifts, where your circadian rhythm, your body's biological clock gets impacted, because you're no longer now attuned with the clock of the nature and your clock together. It's not aligned, so everything goes haywire. So when you are in this kind of career, this is one issue, that you can face health issues. And especially, as long as you're single, it's fine, but especially when you become a mother, then small challenges may come if you are in this kind of role where there is shift duties. And so the family support, the support from the organization through infrastructure like creche and everything is very crucial. We do have creche for the daytime, but nighttime, as of now, we don't have. So it is very crucial.
What is creche?
Creche is where, when you are outside, when you go out to work, you have a facility where there are so many women who can take care of your children. They will feed your child, they can make them sleep.
It's like
Look
a
after.
daycare.
Daycare. Look after. So you see, look, you say daycare. What about night care? There's no night care. And especially when you are in the shift duties, you need such infrastructure as well, because if you don't have a support, your domestic support or your family support, no staff which can do that for you, and your spouse is not posted along with you, then there is the small challenge. But with time, everything is improving. And if you're smart enough, then you can do it, certainly. So I face health challenges. I did have a nanny who was taking care of my child, but I started facing some amount of health issues. But then I could overcome them. Otherwise, there is nothing that the organization cannot handle or help you with. The organization is so equipped and so pro women as far as outside infrastructure and everything is concerned, as far as giving them patient hearing is concerned. Okay, it's so pro women that sooner or later your problem is resolved. So it is one of the best organizations to work if you're really looking at equality. It is there. As long as you are there, I mean, if you are there, you can see actually there is no differentiation.
So it's like they have supported the feminine things like feminism, like so that they will have equality, equal
Yes.
pay, equal opportunity.
So why it helps to support women and encourage women to join armed forces is because that brings diversity. Like I was saying, women come with different personality types. Like, they have more nurturing and compassionate side to them. Just because you are in the armed forces does not mean that you kill that side of you, and you just can't kill that side of your personality. You can't say that no, I'm in the armed forces, I will be tough, I don't have emotions. You cannot do that. And that is why diversity comes into play. So when women come, they come with this side of their personality, which is compassionate, which is kind, which is intuitive, which will definitely help the organization in the long run. Okay, they are better counselors, they are better teachers, they handle individuals, human beings better. That's what happens.
How does Indian Navy support women in terms of professional growth, leadership wise, and work-life balance?
So professionally, like I said, when a woman is in uniform, she's no longer a woman or any other gender. Professionally, the opportunities exist now for both men and women, right? If she meets that criteria, then she becomes eligible for whatever it is that is the opening in front of her, the opportunity that is there. If she meets the criteria, just like any other candidate, maybe it is a male candidate, vis-a-vis that male candidate, if she meets the criteria, she will be through. So that ways the system is very impartial, is becoming more impartial. Okay, now they are inviting women in leadership role as well, like you asked me. Earlier, women were only having career up to 14 years. Now they have got permanent commissions. Okay, now they are becoming commanding officers of the ships. They are becoming number 1 and number 2 of the organization of a ship, right? And that is a big landmark as far as opportunities that are concerned for women. Okay, and so that is there. And about work-life balance, it exists again equally for both men and women. To maintain that, to support their motherhood responsibilities, we have creche, and then we also get staff quarters where we can have a domestic help. Entire family can stay and they can support you in your day-to-day household work, and can take care of your child also. So all of these things exist. The support system exists, which is helping women do better in leadership roles as well.
So as we see more women joining the defense forces, how do you see the whole perspective evolving, like in the defense way?
All right, so as we have more and more women joining, I think the way we lead, the way we do war will change, and I think it will be a different approach, in my opinion. If there is women on the opponent side as well, she will definitely have.
Of course.
She will also think of that there should not be any harm to the to her men or soldiers who are there on the border or on the forefront. So if there are women everywhere in the decision making chair, then I think there will be less fatalities, I believe, and it will be more peaceful. The wars would be fought differently. There would be more dialogues. Okay.
Mama, one more question. Like in this society, like we are a patriarchy kind of society, and if women are in the high position, we know army and defense is a hierarchy system. So in that, will men take command from a woman? Like if someone in the high position is a woman, and if she says, please follow this kind of lead, what will?
Yeah, very relevant question. With the more and more women getting this opportunity to lead, there are times when her accomplishments are attributed to her looks, okay, and not her professional acumen or not her professional capability per se. That are undermined, diminished multiple times. You said it rightly. It is taking some time, and with time I think things will evolve, and men and as a society we will get used to having women in that kind of leadership role, where it is not hurting egos. That's what.
So as you said, you are a soldier, you are not a woman or a man when it comes to army or
Navy
defense.
or Air Force.
Anything.
It is there, and yes, that is there. You are in uniform, you are a soldier. You are not a man or a woman. But the fact remains that the society is patriarchal. Mindset, you cannot erase that mindset quickly and change it to more prospective mindset quickly. Suddenly that cannot happen. It is evolving as a society, and with time the acceptance will come. And we in India largely, I will say that we always worshipped women. We always considered women as equal. So whenever there is Shiv, there is Parvati or any other god that is there, there is always his female counterpart standing, shoulder to shoulder with him. So I think that is our culture, and I think we are getting it back. We had times We had era which actually demolished that setup where women were considered equal, where they could not wear a blouse and it was still okay. But with time, I think it is coming back, you know, that
Mutual
she's
respect.
coming in the mainstream. There is mutual respect happening and more acceptance of her as a strong leadership role. So yes, so I think it's happening, the change in the right direction.
For young women dreaming of getting into Indian Navy, what are the advices you will give? Like what kind of beginning steps they could
They
take?
can take. I think the start has to happen in the school days because Indian Navy primarily is very pro science, academically pro science. So you have to have BTech, BE, or science degree there. So it has to start from your class 10th performance. So you have to take your class 10 seriously. You have to do well in your maths and science papers. Okay, and then 12th you have to opt for physics, chemistry, maths, so that you can in your graduation you can take some science degree and particularly BTech, BE degree. So that is the beginning academically. Otherwise, physically take up some sport so that you are physically agile and you have that stamina to go through the rigorous life of armed forces. Mentally, read books, okay, be more self-aware, get to know yourself, spend time, do some reflection, write journals. So that ways you will develop yourself as an individual and that will shape your personality. So all these three aspects you have to keep in mind starting from class 10.
And
Okay, your academic, your physical attributes, your physical, something to do with your physical strength, and your personality, the inner personality, your core, your values, character, that you will develop by reading good books, personal development, self-awareness, okay, journaling, all of those part. Do a meditation, okay, take up yoga and other things which will make you more grounded and balanced personality.
and also the individual's personality, like if you are an introvert, maybe it will be hard for you to be a commander because the commander has to take the lead. He has to or she has to maintain her men and all the equipment. So all this, and also the logical reasoning.
True.
So how to develop that side? Like you need to be a social butterfly.
Yeah, social butterfly, I will not say it is not the criteria to that you are a social butterfly, then you can come. You can be selectively extrovert while you are an introvert. So for example, as a kid, as a young adult, I was an introvert. But when it came to such things like leading my people, leading my students, leading in NCC or leading anywhere, I was speaking, I was delivering, I was inspiring, I was motivating, okay, and I was expressing them, I was informing them. So I was an extrovert. Yes, I was not a party kind, which is not the requirement. Again, it is not that requirement that you have to be a party kind, that every Friday, Saturday, Sunday you will party. No, this is not the requirement. You can be an introverted person, okay, but when the situation demands, you have to come out there and speak with your men, inspire them, motivate them towards a specific task. You should be able to do that. If you are able to do that, you are more than welcome. And that personality test will happen also in your SSB, Service Selection Board, which I told you is 3 or 4 stage process which happens. There are 3 different officers who see you with a microscopic view whether you are fit or not. So that is important, right? So that happens there and it will happen and you will get to know. So shape your personality like that you should be able to speak with your men and inspire them. Lead in a team. interact with the team, okay, towards a particular mission.
Yeah, I got the juice, yeah, I got the juice. We game cool, make them look like